When it comes to improvisation, how do you approach creating fresh ideas over standard chord changes? And do you have any go-to strategies for keeping things interesting and avoiding predictable lines? That's a heavy loaded question.
Yeah. Well, it goes back to what we were talking in the beginning, feeling comfortable with feeling uncomfortable, feeling comfortable with leaving a space, which I think is one of the issues that it happens to a lot of us when we're younger. The main thing that I hear when I was younger is that I'm playing way too much, so it's the space, the maturity to be able to tell your story without the urge of having to prove yourself, So the jam sessions taught me so much about that. But then, I never practiced like my own creativity until more conscious, like maybe recently. I always transcribe a lot and transcribe on a very deep and emotional level, like to every single musician I've been in love, It's kind of like being married with somebody, and I went through that thing for through these days, but with many musicians, like one interesting, for example, is Michael Brecker, who is one of my biggest influences, and everything that I learned from him is kind of showing now in ways that I wouldn't expect back then, And it has to do with my own phrases, it has to do with how I'm playing, certain, how I move from one note to another note. That is a lot of breaking in there, the use of space sometimes, but then also I transcribe a lot of Mark Turner. And I transcribe a lot of Wayne, Train, Sonny Rollins. And I went deep into those people. So I feel like the way that I hear music is just a mix of everything that I love. And the one thing conceptually that I hear in every person that I love is that they're telling a story, So that is my question, is like, what is my story in relationship to all the things that I love? And I think that aside from the, deep practicing and play with like trying to leave your ego at home and trying to be present, it's like the space allows you to find those things, And so that's the thing that I've been working the most lately, when it comes to creativity. I'm just working on being in the moment and have as many technical tools and knowledge to be able to leave that space, And that space had taught me a lot about what I like and I don't like about my own playing,
I love that. I think there was a great Mark Turner interview where he talked about getting very specific with, like, he'll only play on certain beats and be able to get through the tune that way.
Mark is one of the kings of practicing, very committed. But I took a lesson with him.
Yeah.
And I was like, I'm a fly on the wall, so just practice. And it was like a few hours, like some of the most intense discipline, like just focus practicing ever.
And you mentioned Brecker and the way in which you get from one note to the next. And that's one thing that I really wanted to ask you about, is that, you're playing oftentimes all of the in between the pitches, which is very vocal-like, right?
Yeah.
So you're getting the stuff that we can't really write down. And is it a combination, to get really sax nerd here, is it a combination of vocal tract, tongue position type stuff, bending the pitch and fingering, or is it mostly fingering, do you find, or does it depend?
Like I never worked consciously on it until recently.
Okay.
Until recently, I'm like, okay, where am I exactly feeling the time feel? How is because the sound is part of the time feel too, so where is my intonation in relationship to the center of the pitch? And then what feels, it's not about like, it's never been a technical thing for me. It's more about like trying to find what feels good or feels bad, And so, for example, like if I talk about, so I think they have to divide this into two things. Like when I think about sound and time feel and ideas, which are the three most important concepts on every musician I hear, there's a mystical side and then there is a technical side. The technical side is what you can go and learn everywhere, but like the mystical side is that the sound is a frequency. The time feel is how you feel the time, how you practice ideas or creativity is you don't know until you kind of experience it. So for me, the experience it is through transcriptions. When I think about transcription, it's a way to know who am I through somebody else's way of expressing themselves. So in the beginning, of course, a teacher will tell you, okay, transcribe this and this and this. But when you're older, there's like no such a thing as Train has a better sound than Sonny Rollins or a better time feel or leave more space. It's just totally different. So if I'm transcribing Sonny, that tells me what kind of sounds resonate with me. And then later on, I have gone to Coltrane and it resonates more than Sonny. But it just has to do with like in what frequency you are as a human being, if that makes sense. So when I think about the frequency, it's not about how to say, like the microtones or where the frequency is kind of like us as a human beings. So when I think about the sound as a frequency, it's a voice. So for example, if you say, hey, how are you? Birds are like, hey, how are you? Like there's a total different thing. And you can tell them kind of in what mood I am. So like to me, how can I tell you how I feel through music? And I think that sound is a way to express that. And sound has a lot of different textures. Sound is not just to be in tune. It has like a lot of different layers of personalities and experiences. It's like when like the question is like, why when I hear Train playing that palm key D, it kind of just makes me in a better mood. It makes me feel like I'm a better person. So what is that? So I don't have idea how you practice that. But I know that the transcriptions, I'm trying to find those frequencies, like that emotional content of how Train is playing, not just the technical, and then letting it go, like practicing, you practice all of this. So then you go to a jam session, you're just trying to be present, but I still want to be able to play all of those things. Um, all of that in combination, it has shaped my sound. Because that's the thing that I hear in every saxophone player transcribe, Brecker or Sonny Rollins or George Coleman, Lexer Young. The whole history is about that sound. So then on the technical side, it's like the best parameter I have, aside from the as much control I can have over the horns, so I can decide if I'm gonna play in this spectrum of the emotional part of the sound, is because I choose to play there. And it's intentional. It's not because I'm just like out of tune. You know what I mean? So that's how I think about it. Like, so then when I have long periods where, I'm always working on sound, but the concept changes. So I have periods where I may record an album and be like, there's something about my sound that doesn't feel good. And I may start playing around with like 440, 439 for a month, or like 438 or 36, and just trying to like, just messing around, just see like, okay, somehow this feels better. So that's how I think about sound.
Yeah,
That makes sense.
yeah, it does. And I think in the process of figuring out how other people do it, that discovery is where you learn the methods in which are going to work for you to make it happen. And I think that
that's a complicated thing. Sorry, is that you can't teach anybody. You can't teach somebody what is to have a good sound. You have to feel it. Like you can teach the the technical aspects. It's the same like how to learn language. Like you can't learn language until you can feel it and breathe it. And that to me is the hard part of the process because it takes time.
Right. And having the concept in your mind of what you're going for.
You have a vision.
Yes.
It's like, okay,
then you do what it takes.
Yeah.
To figure it out. Yeah.
And then as we grow older, we change, So it's like I was super into Sonny, and then I was super into this, and then I was super into Breaker. And now, like 20 years later, I'm like going back to a lot of things I like. So I think that is why, like, the best example I can put you of this is going back to Michael Brecker. Like now with all the knowledge of, the history of the saxophone, like I can understand where she's coming from in a way that is really beautiful, because it's not a copy of the thing, but I can hear all the things that he loves, So that teaches me that transcription absorbing part is very much part of the process.
Yeah. One thing that I love about Brecker is the way he starts a solo.
Hmm.
So I spend a lot of time just transcribing just the first statements.
Yeah.
Because once he gets into his thing, it's his thing, and it's amazing, and it's great, and I love that. And but it's like, how does he? It's always such a melodic statement
Hmm.
to get into it,
Yeah.
and I feel like that is something that, at least for me, that I need to spend more time with and capture.
Hmm.
Is what are those initial ideas? How does he create those beautiful little melodies in the very
Yeah.
beginning of a solo? You
Yeah.
know, and
That's a it's a very breaker thing, like,
mhm.
I mean, I feel like a lot of people get the kind of not, they get the breaker, but they don't get the spirit, and that the spirit is what makes him so amazing, and then he have all that technical crazy shit that he can do on the horn.
Right. Now you mentioned part of the sound is the time
Hmm.
feel, um, and that I would say that is one of the biggest differences between somebody that has a lot of experience playing and somebody that has less experience. It's not often the notes,
Hmm.
and sometimes not even the sound. It's the way in which, of course, you play the notes and the time feel.
Hmm.
Um, for me personally, I love to rush.
Hmm.
I get way ahead of the beat, and I have to record myself and really focus on being more in the moment, singing through the instrument in a way rather than portraying what I'm thinking about.
Hmm.
I start to play what I'm thinking, and now I'm ahead,
Yeah.
and I have to. Um, is there anything that maybe consciously or subconsciously, or that you can retrospectively look back and say, here are some. I went through a period of time where I really worked on rhythm, or maybe you're still really working on rhythm,
Yeah.
or
Yeah. I mean, it goes back to transcriptions,
yeah.
I mean, there's the thing, like, um, when I think about practicing, well, before that, I was very lucky that my dad is a saxophone player, and he's just like a transcription freak.
Hmm.
Like, he will spend hours and have like memorize and then have books and books and books of like handwritten transcription. So I grew up with this person just like transcribing all day at home and going super deep into every single detail. So I think that like what he was teaching me is how to have a good rhythm and how to have a good sound and how to make the instrument feel good. Um, we did practice scales, of course, and we did practice with the metronome. But my lesson about how to have a good like feel was through the transcriptions. Was through like, he will be like, the phrase will be like "Ba-do-do-do-dee." I don't know. Oh no, I can play right now. But the phrase will be like "Ba-da-ba-da-da," and you can play without any feel, or you can play it with the feel. But that is how you lead into that note. And my dad will just get obsessed over those little details. So that is what shaped my rhythm. If I would just do the technical thing, that it that thing wouldn't be there.
Hmm.
Now when it comes to rhythm, it's like the rhythm is like how my quarter note and how my eight notes feel. And I always go to fundamentals in everything that I'm practicing. Um, of course, there's like some rhythm exercise, where I think about we'll start on the 2 or the 4, or I create certain patterns, in 5 or 7, whatever I want to practice. But the most important is always about how my quarter note feels when I'm playing on 40 or 30,
Mm.
and how the eight note feels, how the space in the middle of every note feels. And as I've grown older, I can kind of notice, I mean, I notice more and more details in relationship to that. So I get obsessed with the idea of where I'm feeling the beat.
Hmm. That's great. I love that.